Nerd Soul.
Lay ill kid at OneYoungsta holding it down, bringing the street geek and nerd soul. What is up, my people? Today, oh yeah, another wonderful episode of That's Right on screen. We're talking about Ahsoka. You look, you know the deal because we are joined by a Star Wars aficionado. I give to you, Jay Sherer. What's up?
I'm coming live from the world between worlds just to see what's going on with this episode. There's lots of thoughts on this episode on the internets, so we should talk about it.
Yeah. I'm gonna open up with the all-encompassing question. Did you like this episode?
I did, yeah. I liked the episode. I did not like it as much as episode 4. I saw a bunch of people on Twitter that were out there saying, they thought it was the best thing that Star Wars has done since, I think one person said since the prequel trilogy. I'm not in that camp at all. Like, I think that this episode has some 10 out of 10 moments, but overarchingly, I think it's probably more like an 8.5 out of 10 for me personally.
Okay. That's good. Now, I will say
that's good.
I like this episode as well. And since this is two in a row, y'all, one more, and we have what's called a winning streak.
That's right.
It's called a streak. So if y'all could do one more good one, it's called a streak. So just please pay attention, do good stuff, continue to make good stuff, because then it will all be well. We'll all be happy, everything will be fine, it'll all be good. There's a couple of things I wanted to hit on, and I know you put out a tweet, so I want to touch on that a little bit later. But first, I want to give a shout out to Captain Teva. Captain Teva, he's held it down. He's been with us for quite some time throughout the series. He's like part of the connecting thread of these new series, and I like how he's continually trying to poke and prod Hera, like, hey, look, they're gonna come over here. Yeah. Like, they want answers. Like, we need to tell them something. Something has we got to give them something. And also, when she's like, just stall for time, he goes up and he's like, who is this? And the captain of the other ship is like, you know who we are.
Yeah. I like that. I wanted to give That's an old school props. Move. Yeah, that's such an old school move. Who are you again?
It's like, so I'm gonna need confirmation of who you are. You know exactly who we are. Like, don't play games. You know exactly who we are. But I did want to give him his flowers while he's here, because I love Captain Teva. He's been a great part. Kudos to you. So now I have to talk about Hera. Hera. I got an issue with you. Here's my issue with you, Hera. You fell in love with a Jedi. You had a baby with a Jedi. And then when your son, who is the byproduct of said Jedi, says that he's able to hear or sense something, you can't just be like, oh, well, Chopper don't hear it, so I guess it's all. Like, this kid got Force skills, or at least most likely has. Why are you acting brand new? Like, come on, Hera. Like, you gotta believe it. Now, at the end of the episode, she does say, "May the Force be with you." So maybe she's starting to believe, But I'm like, you saw what Kanan could do. Like, why would you? You know that your son most likely has Force sensitivity or Force, abilities. So it almost like she wasn't believing him until like you had to push her a little bit to believe. It's like he knows what he's he knows what he's talking about. Like, but I mean, she did come around, and she did listen. She did listen. So she listened to the waves, but it bothered me that she didn't. I mean, she should have known, like, this is your kid from a Jedi that you were with. Or am I tripping too much?
No, but here's what I think is going on.
Okay.
I think that this is expository for the people who, like, I've never seen Jacen before on screen because I haven't gotten far enough into Rebels to see him.
Oh, so, yeah, like, he's only on screen for like 10 seconds in the epilogue or whatever.
Oh, okay. So see, I didn't even know like how much he was seen or not seen. So like to me, I think what's going on here is it's basically like Dave Filoni saying nobody really knows like that who this kid is. I don't think they'd even mentioned Kanan until, or at least they hadn't mentioned Kanan in the context of being his father until this episode. I don't think.
True. Yeah.
And so I think it's
right.
kind of more like, well, how are we going to showcase to people who this kid is and what he's capable of doing? But you're right. Like because of that, because that's a thing that they have to do, just in case people haven't seen the other series, in this case, the Clone Wars and Rebels, because of what else happens in this episode. Then it's kind of like, okay, well, we got to let them know, like, this is kind of how this kid fits in because they might not otherwise know. And then it doesn't feel genuine when she's like, yeah, I don't care what my kid's saying. Like, it doesn't matter. He hears lightsabers in the waves. Like, what a weirdo. Like, just let him do what he's going to do.
Like, I don't know what's wrong with this kid.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, he's your child, and you know that he was a child of a Jedi.
Yeah.
Like, that you literally were with for years.
Not only that, but a Jedi who literally had to use like his Force sensibilities to see and interact with the world, which is what this kid's doing, right? Like he's basically using the Force to understand that Ahsoka is having an experience. Like that's how attuned he is to what's going on with the Force at that time. It's not even his experience; it's another Force sensitive person's experience that he's actually commenting on, which is pretty fascinating.
I guess the way they did it kind of annoyed me, but I get where you're coming from because I'm sure they're probably saying, well, there's no guarantee that they watched Rebels, or if they did watch Rebels, they would have had to watch it all the way to the end to know that he's Kanan's son. So I get that. The only bad thing about that is the people that did watch it, because you told us that we need to watch everything. The people that did watch it are like, why are we rehashing this? We've been here. Like you sold this show on our nostalgia for that series for the most part. I mean, for that series and Clone Wars. So we've seen that. Yeah. So that's why we're here. Why are we? I don't know. But I get what you're saying. They do. There's always, kind of like Stan Lee said, everyone's comic book is someone's first comic book. So, I get that point. So, I will be able to concede that point. I understand that part.
It's gotten pretty convoluted though. I mean, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars, all of what you have to watch, I've never done the calculation. But just imagine of how much of your life needs to be dedicated to a Star Wars or Marvel show in order for you to understand, without context, what's going on in that show. Like it's crazy. It's so much. And I think that this is all fairly new outside the world of comic books. Like comic book serial storytelling it's not been done in movies all that often because we've never really had a bunch of serialized storytelling in film. We've had James Bond, but like each one of those it's kind of a standalone adventure. Some of them relate to other ones, but it kind of
depends.
Together. Exactly.
Like with the newer crop with Daniel Craig, they kind of
they build on each other.
But then other ones are kind of like, hey, this is just another mission.
Yep, exactly. So it's kind of a new thing to have sequels and third movies and fourth movies and fifth movies and sixth movies, and so I think that it's getting harder and harder to just keep up with those and understand it's only been a comic book thing. And you're right, the people who ran the comic books figured that out pretty quickly. Like, people are just going to be completely lost if we don't give them kind of a precursor into this is who this character is every single time they show up in a new series. But I mean, that's a lot of work. So we're going to see if Marvel and Disney can get back to that.
Yeah, like writing it in a way where it doesn't super annoy people that have been there, but then also brings people in that have no idea. Because like, say someone saw a trailer for Ahsoka, but never really knew anything about Star Wars before. It was like, oh, this looks really cool.
Right.
And they're like, oh, there's tons of other stuff. But I mean, they don't have enough time to watch all that stuff before, before the show comes out.
Right.
Because you're talking about, okay, with Clone Wars, you have the movie and then like 7 seasons.
Oof, yeah, a lot.
I think. And then 4 seasons of Rebels. And then a spattering of episodes on Mandalorian.
Yep.
All to kind of give us an idea of where we are now.
Right. And like, did Morgan, like you bring up Mandalorian, for example, did Morgan exist inside Rebels, or is she just a creation of...
Yeah, she's from Mandalorian. I don't remember seeing her anywhere else.
Right, exactly. So like, just think of where all these characters are coming from. They're like, if you've only seen Rebels and you haven't seen Clone Wars, then this episode you're going like, okay, wait a minute, I gotta catch up with exactly how this all fits together. So they're making a lot of assumptions going into this particular episode with all that happens.
Yeah, it's weird. It's for someone who has been with Star Wars since the prequels, this is a gold mine treasure episode.
Yeah.
But if you picked up at The Mandalorian, because The Mandalorian's a hit. So say if you picked up at The Mandalorian and say you're too young, so all right, prequels came out. When did the prequels come out? Like 99, 98?
Yep.
So okay, let's say you were born in let's say you were born in 2010. That makes you 13 now, and you watched The Mandalorian. Maybe it's a little bit too old for you, but you still watched it. So there's some stuff in Mandalorian I'm like, well, you're 13, so I guess okay. But so you're 13, 14 now, and you're watching The Mandalorian, and you're like, oh, there's this cool character. She did like some samurai stuff. All right, I want to watch that too. But you didn't know there was even animated stuff. You just know about The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you like looked online. You're like, oh, cool. There's other movies and stuff. That's great. But I mean, you were too young for people to take you to it because you're just getting old enough to like start watching stuff on your own, sort of. So you watch this, you're kind of like, I mean, I know what Darth Vader is as like a cultural reference, but I don't know who Anakin is, and is Anakin Darth Vader? And like, I can see someone being sort of lost, even though they're interested in at least some of the material.
Absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, that I will back up and give them the props on that. I will give them props on that. So I'm going to then admonish another person in Huyang. I'm just admonishing everyone today. So okay, Huyang, you know that right now there are, at least that we know of, very little Jedi across the galaxy. Very few. And they, we're just past the, we're just past the whole issue of the Empire. We're starting to rebuild. That we know of, there's only like a handful. Why, with the knowledge of a new young possible Jedi, would you say, no, I'm not going to train you? No, I'm not going to show you how to make, unless he's being like facetious or something like that.
Yeah.
But if, in my opinion, this is like Huyang's prime directive is to train up a new crop of Jedi if he comes across them. And Jacen is a perfect example of someone who has already exhibited the force skills. I mean, him and Broom Boy from Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Broom Boy. Oh boy. But the fact is, I was like, bruh, this is your chance. You're supposed to train them. Like, what's going on with you? But am I wanting too much from Huyang? Maybe I'm tripping.
I mean, we'd have to ask ourselves what the Jedi protocol are to say if he's being within character or not, right? Because like he already said that he wouldn't train Sabine, and that makes sense in context because Sabine's very old to be trained as a Jedi.
Yeah.
Part of the whole thing with the entire prequel trilogy is built off the fact that Anakin is too old to train to be a Jedi and too powerful and too chaotic. So it makes sense.
He was only like, I'm guessing 9.
He had to be 10, 9, 10.
Yes, I'm like guessing because they never really say how old he is, but we're assuming 9 or 10.
Yeah, and it seems crazy to me. I mean, we know the Jedi did not do the right thing. And because it does seem crazy that you'd say, here's somebody with a midichlorian count that's off the charts. They have the potential to be an amazing Force user, but also they could destroy the world. So I guess we won't, or the galaxy. So I guess we won't train them. It's like, wait a minute, shouldn't that be the person you do train?
Yeah,
what if they learn it on their own?
Person that you put all of your energy into making sure that they are good, they are just, that they care about people, that they respect life, that they, that they love their fellow man, like all those beautiful things. Right. That's the person that you should be like driving all of your like, I don't know, like your Care Bears power into.
Exactly. So like, okay, so it makes sense that if the Jedi Order says if you're too old. And I get it too. Like if you haven't learned to use your Force power and you're just doing Jedi mind tricks on the side, and it's like no big deal
on the side.
Like you're like, oh, I don't really want to give a tip for the alcoholic drink I just bought at the bar, so I'm just gonna like say I already gave a tip. Like I get it. Like you're like, okay, you're too old. You don't really know the Force that well. You're not gonna get any better at the Force, and so you just keep doing your Jedi mind tricks. We're gonna leave you alone. I get that. Mm-hmm. So in context, him saying like I'm not going to train Sabine makes sense. But then in context, him saying that he's not going to train Jacen doesn't make sense because it seems like the Jedi protocol would be train this kid as young as possible. So it's confusing.
And Jacen looks like he's approximately the same age that Anakin was, maybe a little older. I don't know because I can't remember how long it's been since the end of Rebels, and even when we do the epilogue for Rebels, Jacen looks like he's a toddler, maybe because he's already sitting in the seat. He might be 5 or so. I don't know. I'm sure someone can come in the comments and let me know exactly how old he is, but he looks 5-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's animated too, so it doesn't really help. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just like when what was it? Leia was supposed to be 10, and I'm like, this girl's like 6. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, there's also no way that he's not been trained by Ahsoka a little bit, right? Like, I mean, it'd be insane if so you are building a new republic, and you're thinking to yourself, like, one of the things that would be really valuable for us to have is any Force user that we know of, we should start to train them to become the Jedi, because before the Jedi got too like we need to live in a giant palace Jedi. Before they got into that kind of Jedi Order, the Jedi Order was around for thousands of years and it was doing a lot of good in the world. So if there's some Force sensitive people, we should probably start training them up again. I mean, this is still the time, like, let me think about this contextually. This is still the time when Luke is off somewhere creating a Jedi Order, right? This is
we're under the impression that Luke is somewhere with Kylo and some kids, kind of like chilling.
And you're gonna tell me that Jacen is not gonna be part of that? Like, come on, he's got to be part of that. There's no way that he could not be part of that. So I'm assuming that Huyang line is him being more of your obnoxious 3PO droid of like, I'm not going to train you because I don't train kids or something, as opposed to him saying it because he's truly not going to train Jacen. But I guess the jury's still out. We'll have to see where Filoni goes with it.
Because it might be one of those things where he's like, I'm not going to train you. Psych, I am going to train you.
Right, exactly.
And I will, with that said, I will also throw a shout out to Mr. Filoni, because Dave, you did your thing on this one. like I've made fun of your directing styles before and said that we don't need to be, paying for your training wheels to direct and stuff like that. So at the same time, I'm going to give you props when you do a good one. I think this episode is great. I was upset when this episode was over. So I give you your props. I really think this was well paced. It gave us everything we needed to a certain degree. I'm mad because we don't see what's going on with Sabine, but I'm also glad because we got a lot of this sort of relational closure, emotional closure, with Anakin and Ahsoka, even if it's just through his Force Ghost. I assume it's his Force Ghost because who knows? But I assume it's his Force Ghost where she's able to let go and let God, if you will. So, shouts to Dave Filoni on that.
Dave Filoni did an amazing job. He was great. Yeah, he did. His shots were great. He had some of the shots where Anakin would momentarily turn into Vader were brilliant, and the way that he directed those was brilliant. So yeah, definitely props to Filoni for this one. This was great.
Yeah, in every way, this episode kind of shows Star Warsiness,
yeah,
Star Wars goodness. And I'll go on and get into that right now with the whole world between worlds, Anakin, Ahsoka, all of that. I love this part of the episode. I really do. It feels good as someone who has invested so much time into Star Wars since the prequels. It is a great, it's a great moment with these two, of him being like, I still have to teach you. And seeing her holding on to kind of what Balin said of your whole, I guess your history or your legacy is nothing but, death and destruction. And, being like, no, I mean, yes, but it's more than that. It's more than just that. And I like that, but I wanted to throw it to you and your tweet. You said people are really misinterpreting Ahsoka right now. I talked about it with ThatNERDSoul last week. That's me. And we'll have to go over it again this week. Let me just say this. It wasn't actually Vader in the cave on Dagobah with Luke. And if you would, please shed light on how people are misinterpreting this whole, I guess, maybe segment of this episode, which is a large part of it.
Yeah. So first, let me say this: it is the best part of the episode, hands down. In fact, it ends at about halfway through the episode, and the episode can't even. Well, I guess if you're a big fan of the space whales, it can attain that level of height again. But for me personally, without having a lot of context into the space whales, the rest of the episode is somewhat boring comparative to what she's doing with Anakin during this 10-minute segment, which is kind of just brilliant. When I said there's 10 out of 10 moments, these are the moments. They all occur in this sequence.
Yeah.
So the meat of the episode is all about this fact that so let's break this down. I'll tell you why I've made the tweet. There was a lot of talk on Twitter today that was trying to suggest that this was actually Anakin showing up, that this was Anakin intentionally showing up, potentially as a Force ghost, to complete her training. That's not the way that I read it at all, and I don't even think that you can actually. I'm interested in arguments that could be made towards this, but I have a whole host of arguments that I would make against it. And let's just start with if you go through the dialogue of the conversation that they're having, Ahsoka says to him after they begin fighting, right? Let's talk about why they begin fighting. The question is whether or not Ahsoka will continue to fight for her life and to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
The metaphor or the analogy that's being used here is that she has been quote unquote killed by Balin's skull, and now the question is, will she fight to regain consciousness in the real world and continue her adventures, or will she just succumb to, look, the world is a complex place. I don't even know my way around it anymore. I've become very stoic. I don't even know, we've seen her being so stoic that it's almost a question of like, does she really care, or is she just going through the motions? And to me, this was kind of the analogy of saying, like, are you going to care, and are you going to show up and keep living, or would you rather just go and be one with the Force now? And that's the basic premise of her being in this, what I would call a Force vision. Mm-hmm. Now, the next question is, okay, well, what does she have to learn in order for her to make it through this vision and live, as opposed to deciding that she's not going to continue? And that's where you have to say, okay, is this actually Anakin showing up, or is this her trying to understand better someone who she had immense admiration for that went on to turn to the dark side, and then how do you deal with that? And so to me, it's kind of revealed early on, because he says to her, we're going to do this training exercise, and then he cuts the bridge that they're on. They fall down. She becomes young Ahsoka, and one of the first things is she says to him, like, we're in the Clone Wars, and he's like, yeah, of course we're in the Clone Wars. I can't remember the exact dialogue. I put it in a tweet.
He said this is one of our first missions.
Yeah, this is one of our first missions. And then she said, why are we here? And he basically goes, like, I don't know. This is your deal, right? So if it's Anakin, this is not very directed training by him. He's letting her experience whatever moments that she needs to experience to get through the part of the character journey that she needs to cross. So that, to me, would indicate that this is Ahsoka's vision, and Ahsoka is dealing with her understanding of who Anakin was, who he became, and then how he ended, right? Which she didn't get to see. And then if you keep going through this, that makes a lot more sense to me as it relates to her character journey and as it relates to Anakin's character journey. Because on the one side, if Anakin is still training her at this point, it removes some of her agency. It removes some of her... It honestly feels a little awkward, because now it feels like she needs to hear from her former master, who happens to have made a lot of wrong choices, none of which he brings up, by the way, in this episode. In fact, if it's Anakin, he switches back and forth between being good Anakin and bad Anakin for no reason. It's almost more like she's having trouble seeing him as good Anakin. She keeps seeing him as Vader flash in, because she's trying to deal with that. But if it's him, why would he flash there? Like, why make that part of your training? So to me, a lot of those things under scrutiny don't hold up as well. And the reason I bring it up too is because some very influential Star Wars fandom prequel era people who have been gatekeepers in the fandom are the ones that are like advocating for this. And I'm like, this feels like another theory that you're advocating for so that you can continue to be a gatekeeper, but like a wider understanding of the Star Wars. Because if it really is Anakin, then why would he, after going through all that he's gone through, traumatizing Ahsoka, why would he come back and traumatize her more? That doesn't seem like someone who turned to the light side's kind of move, right? To come back and do that. So there's a lot of reasons why I just don't feel like now Bryant, Dylan, and I. Bryant's from Fanbase Press. You and he have been on shows with me before. Great commentator. Like he was like, oh, I have to think about that. And he was thinking like, well, maybe it is part of Anakin's essence that does show up. And I'm not arguing against that per se. I'm arguing against it being like, this is Anakin going through the final processes of Ahsoka's training. It's like, that doesn't seem like what this is at all. This seems very much like when Luke, like in my tweet, Luke goes to Dagobah. He goes into the cave, even though Yoda's like, who knows what you're going to see in there. Good luck, bud. He goes into the cave. He fights Vader. What does he do with Vader? He destroys Vader. He cuts Vader's head off. What happens? The helmet melts away, and it is Luke's face. What is that saying to Luke? It's saying to Luke, you will become me if you become the person who is filled with hate and filled with rage and feels like he needs to destroy Darth Vader. Like, you will become Darth Vader. And this is Ahsoka's time to say, do I become Anakin? Do I become Vader? Or do I become something different entirely? And if you notice, she makes the similar choice that Luke makes, is that she throws her lightsaber away when faced with Vader and says, I'm not doing this, man. Like, I'm not going down this road. And that's what brings her back to appreciating life and appreciating what she can bring to the world. So to me, to say that this is Anakin coming back and training her is actually to do a disservice to Ahsoka, where this is actually her wrestling through this issue as opposed to him guiding her through this issue, right? That's just my personal take.
Okay. Well, no, I like that, because my thought, I thought it was a Force Ghost. I thought it could have been three things, but my favorite idea is Force Ghost because it just feels good to me to see them two together. Right. But my first was, it was her conscious, basically what you said. Yeah. Second was, it was a Force Ghost from Anakin, and I'll explain what I mean by that in the second one. And the third was that this was that little owl from the World Between Worlds that follows her around. That was my third idea that it could have been. Yeah. The reason I thought it could have been Anakin is because this is an Anakin Force Ghost soon after Return. So this is someone who has recently, I mean, time-wise, recently come back to the good, redeemed himself, and sees his sort of like his Padawan / best friend / partner in crime kind of thing, sees her struggling, and it's like, I don't want you to struggle like I struggled because I came through the other side. She needs my help. So that's kind of why I see it that way. It's because, like, okay, this is Anakin who's very close to when he turned, going back, being like, yes, I was bad, but that wasn't all I was. I am all of Obi-Wan's training. I am all of Qui-Gon's training. You are all of these. You are not just me, and you're not just the bad of me. So I did. That's kind of how I thought it was. How I saw it from the Force Ghost Anakin side. From the Owl side, I saw it as, this is, I guess, the light side of the Force doing what needed to be done to get her back in the saddle. And then from her conscious side, I agree more with what you were saying. This is her conscious trying to reconcile, like, am I what Vader was, or am I what Anakin was, or am I the possibilities of all of those teachings, but directing them or taking them in another way?
Right.
And I just like the Force Ghost idea because in general, I love Force Ghost moments, even in Last Jedi, even though it shouldn't be necessary. But I love when Yoda comes in and says, "Hey, stupid." It's always worth hope. It's always worth training up the next person that can protect people. What is wrong with you? Why do I have to come back and tell you these things? Like, get off your butt, teach this girl to be a Jedi. Just because you made one mistake. Okay, so let me guess. If you were cooking something and you burned the rice one time, are you just gonna never eat rice again? Or are you gonna, like, learn how to do it properly, or not make the mistake, or make sure you watch the food on the stove? Like Jedi be messing up all the time. But anyway, I like those pep talks, because honestly, in my honest statement, I would love for my grandfather to just show up and be like, hey, look, kid, I love you. It's been a long time, and you need to do this and this because you messing up right here. You know, it would be awesome to have moments like that, because I'm sure all of us have someone in our lives that we love that would be like great to just sit down and have one more chat with them, you know, when times get tough or something like that. But that's why I love the Force Ghost scenes. So that's why I would love for it to be a Force Ghost scene. But I also understand how it could work from the consciousness side, because if it is a Force Ghost scene, the way I reconcile the part where he's like, I don't know why we're here, is even though I'm here in the world between worlds, we're also dealing with your subconscious. So I don't know why your mind took us here, but I'm here to tell you that I'm not only Vader, and you're not only the worst parts of me. And like, you can decide to live. You can decide that life is more than just existing in this ship, like Sabine said. You know, you can do more than just existing in a ship. You can put down roots. Like it, and then also the prequelness of it all, just it still messes with my head where I'm like, so Ahsoka like actually kicked it with Luke for a minute, right? And so how do we have these issues? Like, there's no unless Ahsoka's gonna die at the end of the movie that they have that wraps all these up. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out how, like, the first, or even with as stupid as the New Republic is, like, you have Luke, a couple of Force users under him. There's still people with the Force are being born all around the galaxy. Like, they weren't completely just like obliterated. They weren't like Thanos snapped away. And like Ahsoka's here too. So it's like, why didn't you get like proactive about this? But with that said, I do love her kind of transformation. We see her again. We see her with the not all white, but the lighter clothes. She has the white linen, the lighter gray. Like she got, and I'm feeling it. I'm like, and then we actually see her smile. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, Joy? Is Joy back? Because we've seen Ahsoka smile before. We've seen her hopeful before. So I like that. I'm kind of mad it took us 5 episodes to get, because we only got 3 left. But you know, I am happy that we got a joyful Ahsoka back. You know, someone who, you know, has a zest for life and, like, you know, actually enjoys, you know, the company of, you know, others and stuff like that. So I was happy to see that new change on her, you know. And with that said, some advice to anyone who may be listening. Sometimes you got to go in that closet, man. Gotta throw that stuff out. Throw that old stuff out. All right, it's time to put some new threads on. You know, what's on outside represents what's going on inside. And I know people are gonna say, "Well, clothes don't make the man." Blah, blah. Look, all right, it's a direct reflection. All right, going in some of that stuff in your closet, you gotta get rid of it. It's too old. Maybe it's too small. It's too big. Whatever. It's gotta go. Going to get rid of that. It's time for a new you. You know, it's like, new year, new you. But but I did like her. I did like her change, and actually seeing her smiling multiple times with the Purrgil and all of that. I thought it was cool. And then also seeing the Purrgil as good as they looked, I was like, okay, cool. So you guys are taking your time and you're spending good money. So I like that. I did enjoy that. And also seeing the response of the people on the ship. When the Purrgil started coming up, they were like, "Oh my God!" yeah. Because I don't think many people have seen them, because they seem to be, at least from Rebels and from this, they're kind of like a nomadic pod of whales that just like they're at the edge of like the galaxy. So like, because they don't like a lot of like ships and stuff. So
yeah, what do they eat? That's the question. What do they eat?
Yeah, because they do have kind of like baleen, sort of like regular whales do. So I guess they eat like space mycelium or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so.
Like some space essence that they like eat. I don't know. But it was really cool to see those and how they like responded to seeing them, like, in person, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And the new Ahsoka was really interesting too, because part of the discussion she's having with Anakin is he's basically saying, like, I'm training you for a time of battle. Like, you're going to be the person who knows war. And she's kind of like, I think part of it for me, when she comes out the other side where she's wearing the brighter clothes and she's happier and finding joy, is that she's thinking, like, it's not only about that, it's also about peace. And so I want to do something that brings about peace, that not just me being in a time of war over and over and over again. We need to get beyond that so we can get to a time of peace. I thought that was her coming out with that and smiling that way was, to me, like the embodiment of that change, which was cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. Her character arc for this episode really
great.
It was really the stamp of Ahsoka the show. Yep. It really, because up until now it seemed kind of like Sabine was so she got her own real episode where she was able to deal with herself and see where she wanted to go, and she chose life. So she was basically fighting for her life, underwater, whether she was gonna like die or whatever, and now she's chosen life. So we'll see how that comes through, even the way she fights from here on out, because I'm sure she's gonna have to ignite a lightsaber at least once more, because it doesn't seem like when she gets to wherever the Purrgil are taking her, it doesn't seem like Thrawn is going to be like, oh, well, you got me.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Well, all right. Guess I'll just give up now. And also the moment with the touching the Purrgil or reaching out to the Purrgil and them accepting her, which was something that I thought was cool, because I don't think you would get that response from a dark side Force user.
Right. So,
her and Ezra being two light side users, being two Jedi, it shows that the Purrgil, they're on our side. They're on our side. So I'll throw it over to you for final thoughts, and where can they find you?
Yeah, final thoughts. I thought, like you said, this is the second really good episode in a row. I didn't like it as much as I liked the fourth episode. I liked the fourth episode a little bit better. But this was essential for Ahsoka's character. That 10 minutes, those 10-minute sequence of scenes where she's with Anakin were brilliant. Hayden Christensen, like, he is really embodying that character. He felt like the character from the Clone Wars. He didn't feel as much like the character from Revenge of the Sith. He actually felt like the character from the Clone Wars. So good on him for realizing how to make that adjustment as an actor. He came through really strong with that. The young Ahsoka, phenomenal. Like,
definitely
brilliant. I was kind of shocked. I mean, Star Wars has like a hit or miss nature with kid actors, but and I don't think that she's really young. I don't know how old she is exactly, but she just was.
Yeah, if she's an adult, she's short at least.
yeah, for sure. I looked her up as an actress. I'm pretty sure she's under 18, but I don't know if she's like 16 or if she's like 14, or I don't know. But she was amazing. Like, she did the stunts that she did. If that was a stunt coordinator, I don't know, but phenomenal. Like the way that she seemed like Ahsoka from the Clone Wars. Hayden Christensen seemed like Anakin from the Clone Wars. We had a few fan service things thrown in with seeing Rex, and a couple other characters in the background. So overall, yeah, this was good. This was a good. I think you said it really well. This brings it back to Ahsoka being the focus, which was really needed. And now we have an Ahsoka who is not as focused on war and battle, but more focused on how do we actually get to a place of peace. And that, I think, is going to change her perspective on what she trains Sabine for, because Sabine has grown up in war her whole life. and as growing up in the context of war as like a rebel too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts their relationship. Hyperspace whales, I think, are fine. Like, it doesn't really bug me. They did a good job with it. I'm still not sure how I feel about them going to another galaxy, just because it's from the very beginning, it's been a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Not that I'm against it per se. I like introducing new stuff, so that's cool. But like, how are you going to pull this off? Are they going to go to the new galaxy a lot? Like, I would want to. Like, if all of a sudden you were like, hey, by the way, there's another inhabitable galaxy that is just a long series of jumps away, but we can get there. Like, come on, everyone would want to go there. Like, the Empire could send a bunch of ships over there and just take over that galaxy and be like, hey, you guys have the old galaxy, we'll have the new galaxy, and like, everything's cool, right? Like, so I don't know. Interesting. It's very interesting. Obviously, they're bringing Thrawn back, so we'll get to see him. It doesn't seem like Thrawn is going to have any. Well, I could be wrong about this, but it doesn't seem like Thrawn is going to have any impact over this particular series at all. Like, by the time he shows up, it's going to be like, I'm back, and then that's it, right? Like,
yeah, because we have 3 episodes left, so unless he shows up very next episode, and still we have to jump back.
Yep. Correct. We got to jump back, and then he would have to like band all of the remaining remnant forces of the Empire together and then go fight somebody. Like, in 3 episodes, like, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen to me. So I think we're getting a little bit better footing of like where this is going to end, and I think that it's going to end with basically I don't think Balin's going to be around anymore. Shin, I think, will be around some more. We'll see. But I think she's going to continue on. I think we're going to learn more about the whatever smoke thing there was with Marok. And then I also think that we're going to end up with Ahsoka and Sabine restoring the master-apprentice relationship and it being stronger than ever. And it's going to that's going to take us through the 3 episodes. Thrawn will be back in Galaxy, and I think he'll escape to. I don't know if Morgan makes it through. I think Morgan this might be her last season, but I do think that Thrawn will then go on to get away somehow and then subversively bring the Empire back to strength. So it's going to be. I think it's good. I mean, I think we're going to have 3 good episodes. I'm excited about it. You can find me on Twitter at JSheer. Discussing things with people about Star Wars. Although I only kind of want to discuss Star Wars with like you and like my other friends. I don't even want to be on Twitter discussing Star Wars anymore because some of these people out here, it's too much, man. I'm not interested. But yeah,
I don't want to talk about Star Wars with you guys.
Yeah, just a select few people I want to talk about Star Wars with. But yeah, you can find me over on Orange Grove 55 doing the Story Geek show. We have been doing some Ahsoka shows as well. I always reference this show when I do those shows, so I'm like, oh yeah, Michael and I just talked about this. We talked about, what do you guys think? And then you can also find me on How Stories Work with Jay Sheer, and I've got some new content coming out over there as well, including a short film that we'll be filming throughout the end of the year and probably releasing it early next year. So go check all that stuff out.
All right, that's what's up. And of course, on my end, the young Ahsoka scenes were super cool as well. The battles were great. The sort of realizations and the conversations, whether it was with herself or with Anakin himself, either of them, they were both cool. Like, regardless of it, it was cool. And seeing that change is, it's what I need to kind of stay focused on this show. So I'm glad we got it. We got 2 in a row. Now we just need a 3rd and we're going to be good. So with that said, guys, holler us in the comments, NERDSoul, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, podcast, all that jazz. Until the next time the Purrgil allow you to hitch a ride to another galaxy. This is from us to you saying peace.
Beating you.